This is Kingdom Warrior. I'm your host, Andrea Beam, and every episode we bring you powerful conversations with bold business owners, passionate young adults, and overcomers who have turned their toughest battles into breakthrough moments. We dive into practical business strategies, leadership insights, and the mindset that fuels resilience, so that you can overcome obstacles and scale your calling with confidence. If this speaks to you, hit subscribe now on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode, and share it with someone who needs a shot of bold faith and courage today. You guys, I am stoked to have you on this podcast today and listening to my newest guest. I have Chris Vassar on the call today. And you guys, we're going to be digging really deep into his story, and he's going to be sharing some really crazy cool stuff with you guys. Before we jump into Chris's interview, I want to acknowledge our sponsor super quickly. We have Willamette Valley Christian Supply, which is in Albany, Oregon, at the local mall that's here. If you guys are around the area, make sure to go support his store. He would love that and appreciate that. And you guys, I don't know about you, but I get sucked into that store when I go in there. I sit in there for 2 hours and walk out with about 20 books every time. So make sure you guys go visit his store. And so we're going to jump in with Chris. And you guys, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Chris, but not too much, because I don't want to ruin the conversation that we're about to have. But he did track and field in high school, and he went into the Marines shortly after high school, served in the Marines, and then also worked several leadership positions with Knife River and ATI and Rainier, and is currently working at DHS and is just living his life on fire for God. And we are so going to dig into that today. But before we dig into that, welcome, Chris. I'm super stoked to have you on here.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for bringing me on. I'm very excited to share my testimony and look forward to talking with you, getting to know you a little bit better, and share my story. And I really hope and pray that my story and testimony can help bring people down the right path and lead them to God.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. With your permission, you gave me permission to dig deep, so that's what we're going to do.
Stick a knife in me.
I know. I asked permission first, so,
Hey.
There is that. So let's just start with, let's see here. I'm going to actually, a lot of times I start with, going into someone's backstory, like how they grew up and stuff like that. And I'm actually going to start your story about the time that you were leaving high school and heading into the Marines. I want to kind of have you just talk me through what your life was like just during that little spotlight in your life.
Okay. So grew up in a small town, grew up in Sweet Home, and there just wasn't a lot of guidance coming from teachers, from the guidance from the administration. Unless you were like in the top 5 or 10% of the class and you had a really good GPA, there just wasn't a lot of guidance to steer us down a better path. Growing up in that community at the time, your options were staying in the community and just growing there and just finding a generic job and growing up there and doing that, or working in the woods. And working in the woods did not appeal to me. So for about a year after high school, I got caught up with the wrong crowd and ended up just partying, drinking. I had a couple jobs that didn't last very long. At that age, I was really immature. I didn't have a very good work ethic. I didn't have a lot of drive. My drive was not structured or in the right direction of good things at the time. And my parents were getting really fed up. My mom and my stepdad were getting really fed up with me just kind of coming and going as I pleased. And after high school, I became friends with some kids that went to Eastland Christian Academy. And one of them, his name's Garrett. He's still around. He ended up joining the Marines. And this was like the last ditch thing that like really got my parents under their skin. Was Garrett graduated from boot camp. He went in November of 90. I'm aging myself here. So he went in November of 96. And graduated in, I think it was January of 97. So me, my friend Jeremy, and another friend, Matt, we took off at like midnight, went down to San Diego and watched Garrett graduate from boot camp. And I had conversations with a recruiter about joining. And at that time I was like, absolutely no, not in my future. My stepdad was like, join the military or, move. So I went and watched Garrett graduate boot camp. And I'll tell you what, watching him before he went into boot camp and then watching him after he graduated, to watch that graduation ceremony. And if you ever get an opportunity to do that, I highly suggest that they have it every Friday down there at MCRD San Diego, right by the airport. And it's amazing. It's such an amazing ceremony to watch these young men graduate. Anyway, watched him graduate and I was sold. It was the graduation that sold me on it. I came home, contacted the local recruiter, and I was like, I need to put my name to paper like now. And that was it. I signed the paperwork, went up to MEPS February 19th of 97 and shipped out to boot camp June 10th, I think, 12th. This is a long time ago, around that time frame of 97, and graduated boot camp in September.
Wow. That was fast.
Yeah. It was so when I did recruiter's aid for a little bit. So they have indirects and directs. Your indirect or your high school students, because they ship later. And then you have your directs, which are high school men or graduated high school, post high school graduates who can ship direct. There's nothing holding them back unless they have legal things holding them back. But I did that for a period of time.
So how long did you serve in the Marines?
I was in the Marine Corps Reserve for 6 years. It's 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks out of the summer. And the reason why I chose the reserves was when I was in high school, I was a really good athlete. I was a 3-time letterman in football and varsity, and then a 3-time letterman in track. And I had my senior year, I placed second in the 100-meter dash at state. And then in football, we ended up making the playoffs, lost to Tillamook. But I had a partial track scholarship to Portland State. They wanted me to run track for them. And I took 4 years of math because I knew that in order to get to a 4-year university, I had to take a certain math level. And math has not ever really been my thing. So the second semester of my senior year, I failed math, even though I was looking at the wrong person's paper. And so my plan was to go to Lynn Benton, make up that math credit, go to Portland State and run track, walk on a football. But again, I got caught back up and, I was 19, got caught up and partying and chasing things that later on in life became unimportant. Yeah.
So when you came out of the Marines and you had to kind of, figure out a different path and figure out what to do, what was your state of mind at that point?
It was, I mean, I had drive. I had definitely had a lot of discipline instilled in me in boot camp. It will definitely do that for you. But was still a little lost. I didn't have a lot of direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't have the support. I was kind of, I had a lot of negative influence from people my age that were just out just to party and stuff like that. I ended up having some jobs here and there. Nothing really meaningful or important at the time. There was a number of years where I just kind of floated by and just kind of like got by. Wasn't doing anything important. I was filling my obligations of 1 week in a month, the 2 weeks out of the summer in the Marines. But again, I just wasn't doing anything important. I had faith, like I believed in God, but I didn't have the direction from him. I didn't have that centeredness in my life. And so I just didn't have the direction. I didn't know what to do. I was just a young kid, just, like a lot of other kids here in the Valley. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have direction.
So you float around for a while, you have different jobs. It's interesting that you say that you believed in God. You weren't living for him at that point. What did you have any relationship with God at that point? Like
I
other
did.
than believing?
I did. So I was very fortunate to have a really good friend of mine in high school, and his family took me in. Not like lived with them or anything like that, but spiritually, they included me in their churches. When I'd stay at their house, we'd go to church. And even when I wasn't staying at their house, we would go to church. And so when I graduated from boot camp, like everybody, like every Sunday, you have to go to a church service. It doesn't matter what your faith is or anything like that. You pick one and you go to one. And so I ended up going to I don't remember. I was like in some kind of Baptist non-denominational service. I didn't really pick up on a lot there, but the one thing I picked up on was baptism. I believed in God and I wanted to get baptized, but I wasn't going to do it at boot camp. So when I came home, I reached out to my friend Jeremy and his parents and said, hey, I want to get baptized. And so they reached out to the church that we went to, and their associate pastor came to my parents' house. They had a hot tub. And I got baptized in my parents' house. I had all my friends, my friend Garrett that went to the Marine Corps boot camp, and I watched him, like, had all my friends. And the study Bible that I use today is the Bible that they gifted to me back in 97. And I still have that. I still have the certificate of baptism. That was, Andrea, I'm telling you what, you want to talk about a spiritual thing for me. I remember standing in that hot tub and I felt so dirty, and I went under the water and I came back up and I felt clean, like just like I had taken a shower or a bath, and I just felt clean. And I totally believe I know that was me accepting the Holy Spirit into my heart. And that's where like a lot of conviction over my life came from.
Mm-hmm. So you were, how old were you when that happened again?
I was 19.
19. So fast forward into your 20s and, you've got life happening. You and I talked a little bit about, some of the different things that occurred. Like, you've got 3 girls now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Life has a funny way of kind of throwing curveballs for us, and we start out really, really strong, like in a direction that we think this is where we're going. And we think, gosh, that's where I'm headed. Like you and I've talked about how when I was little, I want to be a missionary, right? Like that's where
Yeah.
I'm headed. And yet life has a funny way of detouring those things that we're so passionate about when we're young. How did you veer off from that later in life?
From God,
Yeah.
honestly, just living in the flesh. We've had this conversation. When you're living in the flesh and sin, there's no accountability. And so it's really easy to just live a life of freeness and excess. And so, you just get caught up in drinking and partying. And that's just kind of where my life had floated for a long time. I still believe in God. And there were a lot of moments throughout that time period. I kind of look at it as like a period of time from the Old Testament to the New Testament. You have like that gap. So there's a gap in my life that existed, but I was just there, and not a lot of importance was there, if you will. So I just kind of floated. I believed in him. Wasn't going to church. I wasn't reading the Bible. I wasn't doing things to seek his heart in a relationship with him. I can fast forward a little bit through some things, like with my oldest daughter's mom. She was a Jehovah's Witness. And so there was no church involved in that. That was not something that ever appealed to me. I knew, through my days of going to church that that's not Christianity. That's just not how my church viewed, the Bible, the New Testament, and how a relationship with the Jesus is. And so there's none of that. But in September, and there's where you and I will probably bounce around a little bit, but this was really the first spiritual thing for me to come into the faith and walk with him. And I ended up, so I'll give you context because we're being humble here. My younger 2 kids, mom and I were together, and we were camping up on the pass with a group of friends. And her and I got into a disagreement, and I ended up jumping in the truck. I didn't even know what time it was. It was dark. It was late at night. Jumped in the truck. I was intoxicated, been drinking all day, and then went from Trout Creek campground up on the pass all the way to Shotgun Creek. I stopped at Circle K in Sweet Home back when it was Circle K and bought a half rack of beer. My mentality at the time was, uh, screw it, whatever. It was not a good mentality at the time. Uh, Ended up driving up in the woods, and I passed out behind the wheel, and a couple people were driving down in a Jeep, saw me falling asleep. I woke up and I took off, and they followed me. Long story short, ended up in jail. Prior to that, there was the conviction. Jesus finds you when you're least expecting it. Like got baptized, so I accepted the Holy Spirit, so I was his, but he wasn't mine because I wasn't seeking him. I was seeking my own desires and needs and wants through the flesh. Prior to the DUI, like the girl's mom and I, we used to party and stuff like that. We used to drink. And I remember it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and all the adults were drunk and kids were running around the house. And I remember standing there watching all the kids run around. And I'm like, what would happen if one of the kids got hurt? Who's going to be the responsible adult? Who's going to be the responsible party that's going to talk to the cops? Who's going to be the responsible party that's going to talk to EMS if the kid gets hurt? Are we going to drive the kid to the hospital? Is that something that we're going to risk? Like, what are we going to do? That conviction really started to pull me out of it. But I was so entrenched in my addiction with alcohol that it was really hard to get out of it. And the catalyst to get out of it was that DUI. That was my rock bottom. That was Jesus reaching out to me saying, "Hey, come over here. Like, you're not living a life that I want you to." So I woke up in jail, and I know the way he works. He won't do it for you. You have to do the work. He wants you to be patient, but at the same time, we have to be proactive. And so I prayed. I was laying on that stupid concrete slab in intakes with some guy on the other side of the intake worried about his meth at a hotel. And I was like, this is not the place for me. I was like, my wife at the time, my kids at the time were at a campground. They had no idea where I was. And I prayed. I said, God, get me out of this. I will do the work. If you lead me and you help me do this, I'll do the work and my life will be yours. And that was massive change. Like, I felt him come into me and just like pull on my heart or my soul. And I started going to church, started praying again, got back in the gym. I quit drinking. Actually, as soon as I got out of jail, I called my vet rep and was like, "Hey, I need to get into an inpatient treatment facility somewhere." And I really hope this person found sobriety and recovery, but God had me. And what he did for me it was a miracle. It was amazing. Down at the Roseburg Hospital, at the VA hospital in Roseburg, they have an inpatient recovery for alcohol and drugs. And they also have a PTSD side that also addresses PTSD, because a lot of times for us vets, it's one and the same. They both feed off each other. What happened was there was a veteran down there who got a hold of the hand sanitizer, and he was drinking it, and they caught him and they kicked him out. So that opened up a bed for me to go down there. And I really hope, I don't know who it was. I really hope that he's found recovery over the years, but I was lucky enough, fortunate or blessed to take that gentleman's bed. And while I was in recovery, I hit my 90 days. And there's a gap in there. There's like all those years of drinking, like there was a conviction. It didn't feel good. And I really have no definitive, like, words to describe it other than it just didn't feel good. I felt like I was doing wrong, but my addiction had me so wrapped up so tight, I just couldn't stop it, because the drinking appealed to me, hanging out with the people appealed to me, going to the bars appealed to me. But waking up in jail that felt so low at that moment in my life. I was not being a good husband. That's not what God wanted me to be doing. I was not being a good dad. That's not a good role model. Waking up in jail while your kids are up in the woods with their mom and them not knowing where you're at was not reflective of, one, somebody who believes in Jesus Christ. Two, it's not reflective of a godly dad, and it's not reflective of a godly husband.
Do you feel like hindsight is 2020. Do you feel like when you look back at different aspects of your life when things were not going well, do you feel like you see now like the different places where God was tapping your shoulder, where God was like protecting you, or God was, chasing you down even at those times when you weren't chasing him down, obviously. But do you feel like you can look back in your life and see those moments?
Absolutely. There's countless times where I'd go places and it didn't feel right and I would leave. And it wasn't because I wasn't in the mood to drink, but it was because it just didn't feel good. It just didn't feel spiritually clean internally. It didn't feel right. It's like the best way I can describe it is a conviction.
Mm-hmm.
And when he convicts you in something, you got to listen to it. Like now I'm like so in tune with the way that he speaks to me. It's just like a love tap right on my chest. And it's almost like your parent pointing at you in the chest, like, not the place you want to be, not the person you want to be around. This is not where I want you to be. And it's just like, okay, I won't be there. I won't go there. But there's just a lot of times, like there were moments where alcohol was at a party and it just didn't appeal to me because conviction wise, it just didn't feel good. It didn't feel like, there was something inside of me saying, hey, if you go down this road, something bad's going to happen.
What point, so our audience doesn't know this, I know this, but at what point did you start getting back into the physical stuff? Because obviously in high school, you were a really good athlete. And then later on, you got into bodybuilding. When did that happen?
So I started getting back into the gym after the DUI in 2013. I started going to church again, started praying again, got back into working out because I know that we're called to be physically fit, more so spiritually fit. But I started getting back into the gym. I bought a weighted vest. I'd go up in the woods and go bow hunting. I'd like go to the gym. I was working out. We were living in Sweet Home. I was going to fitness or not fitness, Steelhead Fitness over there, and got into HIIT classes, and I just dived into church. I started going to church. Took my younger two kids again, and they absolutely loved it. They had a blast. They would go into youth group. And after my service was done, I'd go down there and pick them up. And they always had something like some art project that they would do. And it was always about Jesus. And it was so cool. They loved it. They don't do it now, but they would wear dresses. Girls don't, if you're listening or watching this, yeah, you used to wear dresses and you were cute.
So when you were doing all of the bodybuilding competitions, I want to do a little bit of a correlation here, because I think now where you're at in your life now, and you look back at your bodybuilding period, what's the correlation there in the discipline? Because obviously, like, bodybuilding is a very disciplined sport.
Mhm.
And my boys both wrestled, so I have a little inclination into that world in terms of just how much discipline you have to have with, it's not just working out, right? Like, it's your nutrition, it's your mindset, it's all the above. So how do you correlate that now to when you are living your life like you're living it now? What's the correlation there? Because I know there is one.
First and foremost, my body is a temple. It's a gift from God. It is my job to nurture and feed it with spiritual things that grow it, and then wholesome foods that grow that physical part of my body. I go into the gym or a bodybuilding show competition to honor him, the gift that he has given me, and I'm returning that by honoring my body and building it up. And it's like it has to be by him for him, because when I'm on stage and people look at me, I want people to see him in me. And if I'm not honoring him in the physical fitness things that I'm doing, I'm letting him down.
Uh-huh.
And anybody that's listening or watching this podcast, as you come into a relationship with him and you get really close to him, you're going to feel this. If you let him down, it's inside of you, it's going to hurt. It's almost like you're letting your mom and dad down, your earthly
Uh-huh.
parent down. It's not a fun feeling. And so when it comes to bodybuilding, I do everything I can to do things the right way. And I pray. I sit in my truck and I pray before I go into the gym and work out. I pray as I'm working out. I listen to Christian music, worship music, which a year ago would not have happened. And I'm telling you what, when I'm in the gym, my hands up. My hand is right here, and I probably look really weird doing it, but I don't care, because that guy right there is watching me, and he knows that I'm putting him at the center, the middle of everything, the top of everything that I'm doing.
Well, God talks about being a good steward of actually, I'm just going to leave it at that. He talks about being a good steward, because that you can apply that to a lot of different areas, right? A good steward of our bodies, a good steward of our minds, a good steward of our gifts. That's something we haven't even delved into yet, but I think a lot of people are not acknowledging the gifts that God gave them and are not using those to the highest level, and because of, who knows, like, all kinds of different things, whether that's doubt, whether that's circumstances, whether that's excuses, whatever, right? Like, God gave us things to steward them well. And if we
Mhm.
don't steward things well, and our bodies being one of them, then what's the likelihood that he entrusts you with more responsibility or more leadership? Like, if you can't steward what he's giving you right now, what makes you think that he will let you steward additional things?
Exactly. If I'm in a supervisor leadership role and I'm overseeing people, and I am giving out responsibility, and the people that I oversee are not nurturing the responsibility, they're not growing in the responsibility that I'm giving them, I will not give them any more responsibility. And the same can be said for us. Like, he's given us gifts. Every single one of us have gifts. Like, some people are good speakers. Some people are good listeners. Some people are very good at communication, speaking. Some people just have physical gifts, attributes, bodies. I know people who have great physiques, but they're not fast. I know people who don't have great physiques, but are very quick. You have professional athletes who, baseball players, soccer players, football players. And if you're not giving thanks to the Lord for the things that he's given you, he'll take it away. He will not give you anything else. And if you're like me and you like responsibility, you're going to give them, you're going to want that stuff. You're going to want that earthly and even spiritual responsibility. Because he'll he could give somebody one spiritual gift. And if you're not taking care of that gift, he'll take it away from you. But if you're taking care of it, he's going to give you more spiritual gifts.
There was I actually have it on my wall in here, but I don't remember who brought this up to me the other day. We were talking about just business in general, and we were talking about how your business is the territory that God has entrusted to you. And I thought that was a really cool saying that I wrote it up here on my whiteboard because I needed that reminder. Like, sometimes I feel like, oh, it's just real estate, like I just do real estate. But in reality, like the platform of real estate, what is that? Like we meet with people, we talk with people, we're helping them through all kinds of different transitions in their life. And that is a platform, right? Like
Yeah.
the other day I had a gal who we're helping her sell a home. She had a lot of really tough things happen to her in a very short period of time. And so she was going to lose her home. And uh, anyway, long story short, I was meeting with her and I don't know this person from Adam. Like I had never met them before in my life, but I just offered to pray with her. And she just was broken down in tears and said, oh my gosh, like, yes, I've not had anybody offer to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by the platform we've been given. Like you and your DHS, where you're working now, like you have such a platform. And I've heard already like so many stories talking with you about opportunities that God's given you to work in people's lives that you come across. I mean, DHS is not, right? Like you're working for the state. That's not something you would think of as a right off the top of your head as like a platform where you can minister, but you do.
I do. And it's a fine line that I try to separate a little bit, but at the same time, like if somebody comes to me and strikes up a conversation or says a word that a spiritual word like blessed or something that kind of leads into that conversation, I'm going to follow that up because if I don't, I could potentially be denying that person an opportunity to hear the gospel. I could potentially be denying Jesus from putting somebody in my path that I could be speaking to and encouraging in the faith. It happens all the time. It literally happens at least once a day.
It
It
happens to you a lot.
it happens a lot. Like I'll use this story as an example. Like I've never told you this one. So it's been about a month or so. I was at the office and I was helping a couple with insurance. So what I do is I sit down with people and I help go through their financials and some of their utilities and their income and stuff like that. And I help determine whether people are eligible for state and federal benefits. And there was a couple that came in, they're in their mid 60s. The wife about 2 years ago was diagnosed with dementia. And then the husband, I believe the time frame was about 2 weeks prior to them coming in and meeting with me, was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And they were super nice people. I mean, just amazing people. And so when I have my intakes, I make it a very personal experience. Some people just sit there and they don't say anything. I find awkward silence awkward. And so I try to just make them feel knock down barriers, make them feel welcome because I'm a government employee. So a lot of people see that as a barrier. I'm the bad guy. I could be taking benefits away from them. I could be making life harder on them. And that's not the case at all. None of us like to or even enjoy denying benefits or services to people. It's not a fun conversation to have. But with this couple, they were applying for OHP and SNAP. And just through the conversation, I just asked them, I'm like, are you guys originally from Oregon? They're like, oh no, we moved up here from Phoenix 30 something years ago. I'm like, oh, well, that's great. Like, do you guys have kids? And they're like, yeah, we have, I believe it was like 12, no, not 12. It was 12 grandkids, but they have like 4 kids. But from the 4 kids, they have 12 grandkids. The husband said, he goes, yeah, we're absolutely blessed. And I'm like, oh, you're blessed? Do you believe in Jesus? And he goes, I do. And I was like, listen, far be it from me to step outside of my role as a state worker. Do you know that Jesus can cure your prostate cancer and can cure her dementia? And he goes, yeah, I think so. And I said, I know so. I was like, do you believe in the power of prayer? And he goes, yeah, prayer's pretty powerful. I said, but do you know where it generates from? And he goes, huh? I said, here, it's in your faith. If you don't have the faith and the belief that the prayer is going to work, it won't work. But I'm telling you right now, I was like, do you own a Bible? And he goes, I do. And I said, get in the word, pray like all the time at meals, when you wake up, when you go to bed, pray for the cancer to come up and out of you, pray for 100% healing, because God did not create you to be inflicted with cancer. And he certainly didn't create her to not have a memory and dementia. So through the power of prayer, he can heal you, but you have to have the faith. And he goes, I like you. I'm like, I like you too. He goes, I've had these conversations with a lot of people, and I try to make sure I don't have an ego or pride out of it, but here, because of him, I know I'm exalting him. I'm lifting him up. Trying to bring people to him. So I get to have these conversations when the time comes, but he puts people in my life at least once a day, sometimes more. It's an amazing thing that he does. It's cool.
So I have to bring this up because like just listening to you just now, like explain that story, it makes me think about, so you shared with me that you are feeling like, really called into some form of ministry, right? Not sure what that looks like yet, but some form of ministry. And so, listening to you talk about that experience, it's so funny because I actually see that it's a whole different, like you there for the last like 2 minutes telling that story is different than you at the very beginning of this podcast, because you can just see the passion like start rising up in you, and like you even speak differently. So I think that it's really cool that God puts you in those places where you have the opportunity, right? Like it's not, I recognize what you mean by like, working for a state agency. It's not like you own your own business. It's not like you're an independent contractor. Like you do have to somewhat be careful about those lines. And I can understand that. So the fact that he still is allowing you the opportunity to use what you're doing as a platform is just absolutely like the coolest thing to me, because you wouldn't think of it as a platform. And this is where like I really want to challenge listeners to think about wherever they're at, like if they're working at a place maybe similar to what you just described, and they feel like there's kind of a line that they can't really cross. And I've heard so many people say that, just, well, I don't know how to share my faith where I work. Like it's frowned upon, or and yet there's always going to be openings like you just described. There's going to be spots, there's going to be words. Like if your ears are open and your heart is open, and you're just listening and watching for those signs and those opportunities, like they will happen even in a platform like you currently have.
And that's where we have to be, we need to be spiritually aware and open to his communication and the things that he puts in front of us. We're not called to live inward when it comes to our faith. He wants us to live outward, but at the same time, he wants to make sure that we're not ego driven, and we're not prideful in this, and we're not selfish in this. James, he talks about living outwardly, and what gets us to heaven. A lot of people think it's works, and it's not. A lot of people think it's faith, and it's not. It's a combination of the two. And behind the works has to be the faith, the egoless, the prideless, the selflessness in those works. Because in Matthew, like we were talking the other day, in Matthew, they come to Jesus, and they say, Lord, Lord, we did all these works for you. And he says, depart from me, you and your iniquities. Sorry, I never knew you. I don't ever want to hear those words.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I try really hard not to live a life of fear, but if there's some fear that I have, it's is to hear that from him.
Yeah. Yeah. We had this conversation the other day about really just wanting to be at like whenever it is that we meet Jesus, that we just want to be in a place where we hear that phrase, well done, good and faithful servant. I said it was it feels cliche-ish because I hear it so often that it starts to feel like a cliche. And yet at the end of the day, like there's such a desire to hear those words that nothing else really matters. So all of a sudden the filter in your life, like when you're making decisions, when you're going throughout your day, if you're putting everything through that filter, it changes how you show up
Hmm.
in everything that you do, not just work, but everything, like your friendships, your acquaintances, your heck, going through the grocery store. Like
Yeah.
it just changes how you show up. So one of the things I wanted to kind of dig into with you is you've had such a shift in your mindset around God in recent months, years, like it's shifted and changed. You've had different seasons, but right now you've had a pretty major shift. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. I feel
Okay.
like God has really impressed upon a lot of people. And I felt this way for a while, not just like right this minute. I mean, like for the last, year or two, I felt like there's been this huge calling, I guess, for lack of a better word, of people to really step up and step out in their faith.
Yeah.
How
I
do
agree.
how do you overcome, well, and I just, do you have any fear around that? And if you do, how do you overcome that fear for somebody that might be listening that's like, they're like, gosh, I want to be like that, but I don't know how.
I don't have fear over the way I outwardly live my life. I do know I 100% believe that Jesus Christ is for everybody, but not everybody is receptive to that. Some people want to hear about it right away. There are certain things that are going on in their life. They could be in a season of going into the direction of him. Some people are just living a life of sin and of the flesh. And we need to live outwardly and just kind of gingerly plant a mustard seed. And I'm not shy about it. I feel internally, if I'm shy about it, then I'm doing him a disservice because he's done many amazing things in my life in the last 9 months. And that's how long I've been on this narrow path with him. I just feel like I would be doing him wrong if I were to not live outwardly with it. I've had a lot of people come to me and ask questions. I wear a lot of spiritual shirts, hoodies and stuff like that. I take the opportunity when it arises if I hear somebody say something about, like, make a comment about them, and then I'll talk. I try not to like get into like heated debates with people because that's just not productive. We can prophesize responsibly and in love and not come across hateful or aggressive. And that's not the way that he wants us to do that. But no, to answer your question, I don't have any fear. I welcome the conversations because if I'm closed off in conversation, then I'm never going to lead anybody to the Lord. And like you said a little bit ago about getting into ministry, that's where he's leading me. I've never been a big fan of people. I'll be super honest. I've not been a big people fan. Talking to people that I've never met has been super foreign to me. Working with the state has really knocked down that barrier with me and gotten that uncomfortability to have a conversation with strangers. He has been preparing me for the last 4 years to get into ministry. Because when you're ministering to people, you're talking to people on a pulpit, on a stage, in a park somewhere, wherever it may be, because God works in mysterious, strange ways to talk to people and have uncomfortable conversations. Because to talk about the Lord for some people can be uncomfortable. Some people have been turned off by the church. Some people have been raped. Some people have gone through sexual assault. Some people have had abortions. And in those very traumatic episodes in their life, they can think that they're being punished and that God does not punish people.
Yeah.
Tell you right now, word of mouth, God does not punish people. He allows things to happen so that he can bring you to him through love. And I know that sounds contradictory, but through the word, that's how he does it. And that's what he did to me. 9 months ago, I had the end of a relationship and I idolized the relationship. I idolized her. She was on this pedestal that was higher than God. And so when it ended, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? Prior to that relationship, I used to pray every single night. And then when she moved in, I stopped praying. I was not embarrassed or ashamed, but I was embarrassed to bring her into, I didn't know how to lead. I was embarrassed to bring her into my prayer. I didn't know how she would view it. And so when that relationship ended, I was done. Like I submitted everything. I literally gave him everything. I got on my knees. I cried out in pain because he comes to the brokenhearted. He comes to the weary. And I cried out and I said, I'm no longer having a relationship, whether it be a romantic relationship, a business partnership, a friendship, anything. No relationship will not have you at the middle of it. I'm not living my life for myself anymore. I've tried it in the past. It does not work. It's all you from here on out. You lead. And oh boy, he's moved a lot of things very, very quickly in my life. And there have been, like we talked the other day, it hasn't been overwhelming. I've been able to manage a lot of things at one time. But he's moved very quickly.
Yeah. You said a word I want to go back to. One word. You said that God had been preparing you. So when you look back in hindsight and you see all these things that you've gone through, which most people would say are, bad or tough or hard things to go through. And yet you're using all of those experiences. And this is something you and I have in common, is that we've had to be, and I'm trying to remember, I heard a phrase the other day. I'm probably going to butcher it. I'll see if I can remember it here in a second, but being bold about the things that were tough in our life, right? Like, I have a lot of things that, in my book that I talk about that people are going to read about me when that launches, that not everybody knows about me, but being willing to share those things is where the power really gets taken back. And you're doing the same thing. You're taking those things that maybe some people would go, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Like, I don't want people to know that about me. But you're like, no, like, here, I'm an open book. I'm going to tell you everything about me, because the minute you take the veil off of that, Satan doesn't get to hold that over your head anymore.
He has, listen, that evil spirit has no power over me. None. Through the word of God, I have the power. Jesus Christ gave me the power. When he shed his blood for me, that power shifted to me. It shifted to you. It shifted to everybody of faith. Even the people that don't have faith have the power. They just don't know it. Through our testimony is where the faith comes in. We can look at it one of two ways. We can look at it as God's punishing us, or we can look at it as we're going through these trials and tribulations because he loves us. We can look at it as a negative, or we can look at it as a positive. God flat out says, what the devil does for bad, I'm taking for good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had a lot of things in my life. A lot of things. I had my nephew die a year and a half ago. I could have blamed God. I could have said, why are you doing this? Why? What's the purpose of this? Instead, I leaned into him. I prayed into him. I was like, for whatever your purpose this is, please reveal it to me so that I can learn from it and I can help others learn from it. Our testimony is what brings us to people, or to Jesus Christ, to the Lord. That's when we humble ourselves, we're taking the power back from Satan, because he wants us to live this life, this shameful, embarrassed life. So we're living outwardly and we're embracing our past and we're speaking our testimony, we're taking that power back. And we're helping people overcome their testimony and the bad and the sad and all the things that happened to us here. And we're turning it for good. We're taking that power back. And I really hope that people listening to this and any other podcast you do from here on out, and people really listen to testimony, you have the power. It's explicit in the Bible. We can step on the serpent's neck. We cast him out. He has no dominion. He has no power over us. None. He lies, deceives, and kills. And that's all he can do. And really, realistically, he can't even touch us. He can, like in Charlie Kirk's case. And I'm not I know that topic can kind of be divisive, but the gentleman that killed Charlie Kirk, the devil worked through him to kill Charlie. And that's what he does.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I should just let you go. I just need to let you preach on here.
No.
I'm just going to quit asking questions and let you preach.
That's where I can't shut up sometimes. It's not me speaking. I mean, it's me speaking, but he's speaking through me. He's using me as a conduit to speak to people. I'm so passionate because he has given me this gift of grace and redemption to give to other people. And that is just where my passion lies. I have so much love for him. it's just, I'm like a big firework, just, just, it's out there.
Love that so much. Kind of back to the topic that we were just talking about still, but it makes me think about the event that we're going to be doing next year. And the topic, or not the topic, the theme around the event is really about going on the offense instead of being on the defense. And that's been a thing that I've kind of been living with for a while, is this. I think for a long time, I felt like I was kind of like hiding in a corner, like just trying to survive. And yet now there's been this, again, kind of that word calling to really come out of that shell and like, what am I doing? Why am I hiding back in fear? Like, why am I even allowing? I don't know if you've read this book. Totally gonna probably butcher his name. I think it's Giglio is the last name, and he has a book out called "Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table."
That's a good phrase.
I know, right? I know. I love that phrase. I probably should have it plastered on my wall somewhere. In the book, though, they talk about all the different ways that we do that, right? That we open up the door and really allow Satan to come into our life and work those thoughts and the doubts and the fears and all the things. And he lets them fester and rot and and grow. But in the book, when he's talking about all these different situations, and he was like, even little examples like gossiping at your office, you're opening the door to giving Satan a seat at your table.
Yep.
Or resentment. Like, this was a big one for me. So he talked about resentment being, you have like somebody who wronged you in some way, right? And so you want them to apologize. Like, you want them to come to you and say, I'm sorry, or I was wrong, or whatever. And so what do? You start talking with your friends about it, and you start complaining to them about it. And you start telling the story over and over again, trying to make sure that you point out what this other person did, right? Because you're like looking for this validation from all these other people that, yeah, you were in the right, that person was in the wrong. And he explains like how this happened to him. He had reached out to a pastor. I think in the book, he talks about reaching out to his pastor, and he's going on this tangent, right, about whatever this person had wronged him. And the pastor doesn't respond to him. Like, he doesn't text him back right away. And like, it's like, I don't remember. I think it was 2 or 3 days later, he said, if I remember. I might be getting this a little wrong, so nobody judge me on my recollection of how this story went in the book. But he goes, you're giving Satan a seat at your table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was his only response. Not, yeah, man, you're right. Or, yep, that person was wrong. Or, no, there was no commisery, right? Like, happening. He was just like, don't give the enemy a seat at your table, dude. Like, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And that author's very right. It's easy to do that, to get caught up, because we're natural creatures. We're tied and connected to this world that Satan currently, for the lack of a better word, runs.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're also supernatural creatures. We're connected to God through prayer. We're pulled in this direction. It's really hard to be a Christian or be faith-based individual. When it comes to sin and living in the flesh, there's no accountability for it. That's where Satan wants you to live, is where there's no accountability, because I hate to say it, but we're human beings. We're lazy. We don't want to be held accountable. Would you like it if I told you did something wrong? Probably not. That lack of accountability is cool. That's where I was stuck at for years, because there was nobody to say, hey, the Bible says you shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. But now that there's this conviction, I know better. And as I've come more into the spirit with him, I become more in tune with my sin. I recognize it. I repent from it, and I try really hard not to repeat it. I always will, to certain degrees, because I'm of the flesh. I'm of the world for now. And I hope I get up there, but that's where we're at right now. And okay. So the devil and demons, this is might get a little spiritually weird, but the devil and demons currently are on this earth, and they have been watching us since birth. They know what our temptations are. They know what our sin is, and they cause us to constantly live in that sin. And that's like when you were saying a little bit ago about living ashamed, living embarrassed, being afraid. We're not called to live in any of those ways. We were called to live completely different, outwardly, spiritually confident life. That's what Jesus wanted us to do. It's all over the New Testament. But because we're connected to this world in the flesh, we do at times get caught up in those things. But as we come into faith and that becomes stronger and stronger, you're able to recognize and repent from it, and then try really hard not to repeat it. But then you can actually go out and speak to people and have conversations and say, hey, this is what you currently have going on. You got to pray and repent. And the repentance is, to acknowledge it and not repeat it. And that's what I do with people is I just try to, and I make it very clear that I still continue to sin, but I try really hard to recognize it and not repeat it, acknowledge it, ask for forgiveness, and then move on from it. I don't sit in it. I don't wallow in it. I don't dwell on it. And that's just where Satan wants you to live. He wants you to just dwell, like in testimony, like we were talking about a little while ago. Our testimony changes lives. It brings us to God. If we're not sharing our testimony, then we're kind of living in fear. We're kind of dwelling on our past sins. We're ashamed and embarrassed of it. We take that power back. It's no longer his, it's ours.
Yeah. There, in the book that I'm writing, I actually asked the question around that because that is all of Satan's tools, right? Like he's using that to hold you back. He's using that to keep you, pushed down, I guess is how you could say that. But that's not what Jesus says. Like that is not what's in the Bible. And if you are actually like, either you believe God or you don't. And there was a question that I asked in my book and I say, like, are you calling God a liar? Because essentially that's what you're doing.
I was just going to bring that up, and I'm so glad that you did. I was like, I know I've read a little bit, and I was just going to bring that up. If you believe in God and you're not living that way, you are calling God a liar. And you like, if you believe in God and you're calling him a liar, like that's a massive sin of itself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like, the word is the word. It's the truth. It doesn't change. We change. But the word doesn't change, and it doesn't evolve with the times. It is what it is. And that's our sword. That's our weapon to fight all the evil that's out there. That's how we can discern when people are telling us lies. Like I work in downtown Salem. I've had some very interesting conversations with people. I actually had one time with a guy that I'm pretty positive that he was being influenced by a spirit. And I was sitting there minding my business, and hey, it's 2025. He's like, do you know what the Holy Bible is? And I'm like, well, if you don't know what the Holy Bible is, you're living under a rock. And he goes, well, why doesn't the Bible change to us? Why doesn't it change with the time? And I'm like, the Bible is the word of God. It's the truth, and it doesn't change. We change. It doesn't change with the times. It never changes. It doesn't evolve. We evolve, we change, but we have to evolve and change to the word. Now, every time you read the Bible, it gets a little bit easier and easier to read, and you can apply it more to life. So that's really the only way that it changes, and it doesn't even change.
Which is the problem with so much of society today is they're trying to change the Bible into what they want it to be. And
Yeah.
it's not, that ain't it. Like that ain't it. Like the Bible is infallible. Like you can't just walk into the Bible and be like, well, I'm gonna make the Bible just be what I need it to be for who I am. And I don't like that. Like I don't believe in that. I don't condone that. I think, people try to cut the corners, so to speak, with it, and it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Well, when you're cutting corners on the Bible, you're forcing the Bible to adapt to your own interpretation of the Bible. There's a Bible out that I don't know who, but it's a new age Bible, and they've taken the vernacular of young adults nowadays, and they have changed scripture in that Bible. It's a Bible that looks like a Zack Snyder. It's an interactive, cartoonish type Bible, but all like in the bubbles, but the Bible characters are speaking. It's the new age words that these young kids speak, like no cap,
Yeah.
6'7", that kind of silly
Yeah.
stuff. They're literally changing. I understand why they did it. They were trying to target younger generations, but they're changing the word of the Bible. They're changing God's, and they can't. That's deceptive. It's demonic. It's not godly in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. We're going to have to do, I have a feeling this is going to be like a whole series, because you're going to end up having to come back on here. We'll have a whole topic on spiritual warfare. We're going to have a whole topic on all these different things that we've like kind of gone into in this podcast. And then we're going to have to have a whole podcast just on one topic, and we can go really
Yeah.
deep into it.
I'll come back on. I really want to talk about like growing up in a soft church that never spoke about power of the spirits
Yeah.
and how important it is to know the spiritual weapons we have at our disposal to fight those times and those moments when we're being attacked by Satan.
Well, it sounds like that's our very next podcast together. Is it's all going to be on spiritual warfare.
Sounds good. Hey, Kingdom Warrior.
I know, right there. I love it. Yeah. So for those of you guys that don't know, we haven't really like made an announcement about this, but Chris is partnering with me in Kingdom Warrior, and we are kind of building out this whole framework, if you will. And the cool thing is that, obviously Chris wanting to be going into ministry and things like that, having you on here again to do this, you're going to actually host some of these podcasts yourself. You're going to do some of the interviews yourself, and you've already got a lineup of some people, it sounds like.
I do. I have a couple guys. I asked one guy the other morning at the gym. There's a couple other people that I'm going to bring on. Going to definitely bring some people in here, some men and women in here, and for testimony, and they can share their stories. And what we're going to do is Jesus centered, Christ focused, and it's going to be for him, by him. He's going to work through you and I and anybody else that we bring in on this. And I am so excited about this. Passionate, driven. I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. So from the previous podcast, the one with Christina Hubbard that some of you guys have, I'm sure, listened to. So both Chris and Christina and myself actually got together all the other day, and it totally made me think of that. There's a reel that goes around that, oh gosh, there's two of them. And I'm like, oh gosh, there's three of them.
Hey, 2 by 2. That's what Jesus says. 2 by 2. Go preach to all nations, create disciples. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're filling heaven with people.
That's right. That's right. Let's go. Let's go. I love it.
Amen.
Love it. All right. Well, we will have Chris back again. Thank you guys so much for being on here. But sounds like we'll be back soon with a topic on spiritual warfare. So be on the lookout. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you for having me.